So we'll just wait for a few minutes, Tarita, while people are joining us. But thank you so much for making the time and joining us today.
It's always a pleasure to meet like-minded people, to chat with like-minded people, to let people know your agendas in life, understand theirs. It's always fun.
No, and I want to say before even we get started that while I'm looking forward to a great conversation today with you, Tarita, I should let the viewers who are already here know that there's some excellent recordings of Tarita's thoughts and views and her journey on YouTube, and you should check it out because I did, and they were fascinating. Tarita, what does your name mean, Tarita?
Okay. Uh, let me take 2 minutes to tell you the story because it's a very interesting story. So my life began even while I was in my mother's womb as a very interesting life. So when I was, my mother conceived, she had conceived me and I was in her womb. She was pregnant with me. She went to see this movie with my dad. My dad and she were both lovers of all Western movies. So I think many of you must have heard of this movie by the name of Mutiny on the Bounty.
Hmm?
In which one of the actresses is Marilyn Monroe,
Yes.
the lead actress, and the second one, the princess of the the Tahitian princess, the tribal princess. She's an actress by the name of Tarita. Her original name is Tarita. And so when my mom, she really loved that actress, her vivacity and everything about her. And she said, if I have a daughter, I'm going to name her Tarita. And of course, that time there was no way of knowing whether it's a girl or boy. And fortunately, she had me, and she named me Tarita. She kept her promise to herself. And then later on, much later, actually, this is a French name. Much later, I think about 10, 15 years back, when Maneka Gandhi, she came out with her 2000 Hindu names. If many of you must be knowing. She's got a book by the name of 2000 Hindu names. And luckily, fortunately, I happened to find my name in that.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, absolutely. So it is Tarita, and it means it's the second name for Ma Durga. And the third meaning is, like there are different meanings about a name or something. And the other meaning is that someone who takes people across, someone
Oh,
who takes people across. And so later on, my mom and everybody felt, when this meaning came out, that this is so apt, for whatever I'm doing in my life today, like. And
yes. Yes. I mean, I mean, by the way, all three meanings are apt.
yeah.
Not to be uh, personally intrusive, but you are vivacious. And the Durga analogy, you've been
Oh,
the
that is
Iron Lady
totally
of
there.
the Iron Lady of Pune, as you are called.
Yeah,
And of course, you are taking thousands of young
yeah.
people across to greater heights. Let me formally begin by introducing you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us again for Campus Charcha. And we are joined today by Dr. Tarita Shankar, whose unique name we were just discussing. Tarita is the chairperson of the Indira Group of Institutes and the founder secretary of the Sri Chanakya Education Society. She's got degrees in both arts and law, and she attended the famous Owner President Management Program at the Harvard Business School. I know several people who went there and swear by that program.
Absolutely.
But like I was saying, Tarita has had a tremendous career with stellar achievements, lots of awards. The Change Leader and Innovator Award by ET Now, the Woman Super Achiever Award at the World HRD Congress just 3 years ago. And there's a long list. And also, of course, the honorary doctorate degree, which is why we are addressing her as Dr. Shankar in management, conferred by the Chitkara University in Chandigarh. Uh, we'll get to learn a lot more about her, but what I wanted to start out by was, of course, I noticed, Tarita, that there aren't many women in higher education in our country. Certainly not many women leaders. If you look at vice chancellors or directors of institutions, you don't find too many women. And yes, there are a few women owners or chancellors or promoters or chairpersons, but they generally come from a family that has already been in education. So they are not, as it were, the true entrepreneurs or promoters. They inherited what they got. But you, if I'm not mistaken, are truly self-made in this space. And I don't think I have met anyone in India yet who set up a higher education institution, and not just one, but multiple institutions from scratch. So it would be wonderful to find out a bit about your journey. And of course, from there, a lot of the learnings which I'm sure you are bringing to the education that you're providing your students. So I'm sure you have a story there, and I'd love to hear that.
Firstly, Prama, thank you for introducing me so nicely and completely, the in your own way, and so much about me, which I always feel that it's not required. But thank you so much, and a big hi to everyone who are watching us today. And thank you, Prama, for bringing me over here on this platform with you. It's great also to be associated with Harappa. That is what I would also like to say before I begin. And we've read so much about you too, so good and wonderful things about you. So I know it's not just going to be interesting one way; it's going to be an interesting talk both the ways. Like. So, getting about Indira and what you said, that about me being a rare species in the world of education in India who has started from scratch. These are exactly the words that my brother always uses. They are like stolen from my brother's mouth. And whenever he also wants to introduce me, or he's talking to people, or even when he's in our own group, and he also always says the same thing. And it's true, more or less, actually, what you said, that yes, we do have a lot of women in education, but they're majorly in the teaching world, and the teaching world is more filled with teachers, of course, than women teachers and all that. But someone starting from scratch and making an institution, yes, I pride myself in that. And I'm very glad that I do it, because as a woman, I bring a complete different perspective. To this, whole gamut of education that we call, because as you are aware, what we have chatted, and I always feel that education is so much beyond the classrooms that we teach, and women can do that so much, because if she can run her family, even doing something in the family from childhood, it's educating. I mean, it's education from there. Education need not be in classes and libraries and books. It's all in your daily experience, the way you work, the way you teach people, the way you take people with you. So I think from my childhood, I learned that, and to begin the story, and about how we started at Indira, it was a very chance, thing that happened in my life, rather in our life. That is me and my brother, I always say, because when we started, and then my brother joined me, he was in fact just doing his MBA at that time, and both of us started very young. Like I was working in a very interesting job. I don't know whether you know about this part of me. When I started Indira, I was working as the community relations director at the Enron Group in India. The Enron had just come into India, and it was in Maharashtra. So they needed a person, with skills, who could manage the communities, the displaced communities
Yes, yes, yes.
where it was coming up. And they also needed a Marathi and speaking person, and an English one, who would be a wonderful bygo, between the promoters of Enron, I mean, the gas company, the Abol Power company, and the people. So I happened to be a natural choice at that time, because I knew the then energy minister very well, and I also knew Honorable, like Sharad Pawarji at that time very well. In fact, he also happened to be one of my mentors in my early days, like. And so it so happened that I was working with them, and the energy minister, that is Appasaheb Dharkar, late Appasaheb Dharkar, also happened to be the education minister. And this is what you're talking about, 93. So when the new Maharashtra Universities Act came out, when it was a private university for private education. So everybody wanted to jump the bandwagon and started some college or something or the other and got into it. It was like, there was hardly any AICT or any rules and regulations. People literally started colleges, in one classroom or one floor. Like even we started the first Indira Institute of Management on just 2,000 square feet of a rented building, a
Hmm.
rented school. And this was all again with Mr. Appasaheb Dharkar. He said that no, all good people must get into education. It's okay, you're working at Enron and all, but come on, even I'm going to make a trust and I'm making a college. You also make a college, And I mean, it just happened like खेलते खेलते हंसते खेलते बैठ के एक दिन चलो trust बनाना है और college चालू करना है. And luckily, I had the support of my parents that time, and they said, "Wonderful, we'll all support you. We'll all be trustees on our trust. We'll form a family trust." And it just happened, overnight. And In fact, the earlier days of Indira, the first 6 months of Indira, I was setting up the college also, and my dad and my brother were both helping me doing that. And I was also working in Enron. So my week used to be divided, where I used to be 3 days in Pune doing the college thingy, and I used to be 2 days in Mumbai and 2 days in Dabhol. I mean, where our power project was coming up. So I had a guest house and all out there, and I used to be there. So it used to be like, I was completely, on the move, like at that time. And the 6 months, and never really exactly knew at that time, this we're talking about 27 years back, that private education, could take on such a big, face in the coming years, like. And in the very first year when we started our MBA college, we started the MBA college, and so the response was so massive. We had 60 students and we got about plus 600 plus applications in the very first year, when it was new, because at that time there were hardly any MBA colleges in Pune. And so even that, starting that of an MBA college first also has a story. I mean, it was like my brother, I told you, was doing his first year of MBA when we started. And when he was trying for his MBA, that time, of course, Symbiosis was the best institute in Pune for management. And the second one was Pumba, that is Pune University Management Department, So that was the one. So he just missed his Symbiosis, by 2, 3 marks or something. So he was on the wait list. And then the second choice was, of course, Pumba, you know and then we said, okay, let us like try for Pumba for him, because Pumba also, I think he was just getting into Pumba. So we went to the that's how I came to know the energy minister also at that time. We got to know him, and through some friends of ours, he helped him get the admission and all that. Of course, later on in 1 week, his name did come up in Symbiosis, but he preferred to stay at Pumba, because the minister had used his word out there. And that's how I felt to know that, well, we all in the family, rather, like me and my brother and my dad, we said, well, let's start an MBA college, because there's really a dearth of MBA colleges, and we saw what happened when Chetan wanted an admission, and so let's start that. So that's how even the MBA college started. So as far as Indira is concerned, we work backwards. Normally people start from play group, that is PG, play group, and then move to PG. We started the other way around. Puri ulti kahani hai hamari, ulti ganga beh rahi thi. So it was from PG, that is postgraduate MBA, and now of course we have play groups in schools and everything. And then in 6 months the college was like, there's so much to do over there. I had to resign from my job in
Hmm.
Enron, and I said, well, I think I have found my space where I
Right.
want to be, the
Yeah.
students, the youth, and that's it.
I have so many questions to ask you about this journey, because it is really a fascinating and a unique journey. But my organizers always tell me in my team that I tend to digress from the topic. The topic today is about how do you bring in values and values into education. I suspect that, given your unique journey, and as a woman who's lived life on your own terms, and as an entrepreneur getting into a new field, I'm sure there's a lot of lessons that you learned in your life, and values that you built in your life, which you are bringing to your students at Indira. So could you talk a little bit about that? How does your own journey connect to what you are trying to do with your students? And I know you feel passionately about this.
Yeah, and I told you very importantly the other day also when we discussed, and I think it's one of the new terms that I've coined for myself, from a totally irresponsible young girl, to a responsible adult, who carries the responsibility of so many people. So obviously that journey has been completely, it's a 360 degrees turnaround from what I was, in my 20s to what I'm in my 50s today. And of the larger part of which has been with Indira 27 years. So, and the success of Indira also, without any political backing, without any financial backing, because we came from a very, very middle class family with nothing today, building up a complete group of institutions. It needs a lot of values. I mean, without those values and without those unique values, rather, you cannot build what we're building today and sustaining it and making it a name to reckon with institutions who are well over 50 to 60 to 100 years in Pune. Today, we are in the top 5, and there are others who have started 60, 70 years back, where we are a very young organization comparatively for education. Pune is known as the Oxford of the East. And Pune itself is a city of values. So people like us who are born and brought up in the city of Pune, we are, like given a lot of values from our childhood.
Hmm.
And I mean, of course, everybody talks about those, but very few practice those. Like when I went through my life, I realized, that there is a certain sector of people, that there's certain strata of people, who need a lot of help, and who is, like that strata in India, where they need to be brought up into the mainstream. So if they are not brought up into the mainstream, then we are really not doing education the right way. Because if we see in India, education still today needs, I mean, we need a lot of people to be educated. A lot stands, still to desired as far as education is concerned. So from day one of the greatest things that we decided at Indira, it was that we will never have education which is very expensive. You see, we will have education that is going to be affordable, and yet we will be giving something that some of the best institutes or universities in the world will give. So we traveled a lot. I used to travel a lot from my childhood. I mean, from my young days, my brother and me, and we used to get all the good practices, that were happening in universities outside, or even in generally. I mean, like if you come to Indira from day one, I mean, it's a campus, which is an extremely clean campus. Whenever you visit, extremely clean. I mean, I have literally in my earlier days, like when you talk of values, I feel that whatever you want to teach others, whatever you want others to practice, you have to practice it first yourself. So right from cleaning your toilets to showing showing your class 4 employees how to clean everything. Because I've always believed that, clean today, Modi is doing the Abhiyan just now. But I think at Indira, we started the Abhiyan 27 years back. So every campus of Indira, Ramat, is extremely clean. And that's one of the values. Because if you have a clean mind, then you want everything clean around you.
Hmm.
That is what I believe in. So you unclutter your mind, and like this is exactly what I was saying some time back, filter out what you don't need, and be, you know, teaching your students, that be ready to accept whatever comes your way. That is a very important value that we need to give our students to do, instead of the comparative value that I must compare with this one, I must compare with that one, and I must be doing this. No, what you are, you learn to accept that. So what your worth is, it's very important from day one. In our schools, we start teaching that, learn to accept and understand who you are first. If you do that, you're becoming a happy person. If you're a happy person, you're going to make a happy society. So there are so many, things that convert into values over the years, and that convert into teaching. And I think being in education, you have so many takers for your values. You see, today, like I'm absolutely honest about myself. I'm too honest to the point where the worst and the best of my life I share with my students. And that is, one of the qualities where a lot of my students, they ask that, are we supposed to be so brashly honest about our lives? Is there something bad about it? I said, yes, you are supposed to be. Because if you want people to know the real you, and if you want people to love the real you, then you have to be the real you. If you do not show the world who you are, then whatever they are showering on you, if somebody is loving you, or somebody is not liking something about you, if that's not the real you, then they're not, giving you the right kind of, I mean, feelings or emotions or whatever it is. So that is one quality from day one I have taught, and many people don't like that about me. A lot of people tell me that, why do you share your life so openly with everybody? And I say, now you can see it at this stage. Why? Because most of my students, they all love me just for this quality, that I'm honest, and they've learned this honesty. They've learned that to accept the life the way it is, to put it in front of everybody. Okay, well, I'm like that. I'm like that. I mean, take it or leave it.
So
And
Tarita,
mostly sorry.
go ahead. Sorry, finish the thought. Sorry, didn't mean to
Yeah,
interrupt.
so mostly I have seen that with this kind of an attitude, there are people, mostly the real ones, who will want to the way you are, and there are many people who feel, well, you should, like, वो एक हमारी मराठी में कहावत है कुछ, कि झाकली मुठ सवा लाखाची. मतलब अगर आपकी मुट्ठी बंद है, तो उसमें वो ढकी हुई मुठ जो है, उसमें आपकी इज्जत है.
Hmm.
मैं वैसा नहीं सोचती. मैं पहले दिन से कभी ऐसा नहीं सोची, I never thought that, and that's what I tell my students, because everybody is bound to make mistakes. We all make mistakes, we all make blunders in our life. But there are people who have, come out of those blunders. They have made their lives differently. Some who have just gone and finished their lives and ended their lives. So what is it that you want? You want to live life, enjoy it, be honest. I mean, you don't need anything else. You just need that to accept that this is your life and you're going to live it the way you want. As long as you're not cutting somebody else's throat, and you're not cutting somebody else's pocket, and you're not spoiling somebody else's life, just live it. And I think it's perfectly worked with me, my students, and my entire team. That is how it is, and that is how the Scare Club is also come in. Like, the students come and they want to know, about everything which they cannot talk to so many people. They can't talk with their parents, with their family. They just come and talk with me, and it became a major hit. And I mean, that's how the
Just
values are
let
spread too.
before you go there, because it's an important
Okay,
aspect. I don't want it to just flow
flow.
through the conversation, but highlight it. So
Yeah.
you are sitting right at the top as the chairperson of this group, and you keep saying, "My students, my students, my students." How do you interact with the students? Most vice chancellors or chancellors or chairpersons don't teach; they are not there. Yeah, this running the institution. You seem to connect directly to students. How do you do that? And is that one of the ways in which you are propagating your values?
Absolutely. You just said it absolutely, that is one of the ways. And thanks, a big thanks, to social media. And like a few years back, again, this is personally related. A few years back, when I divorced from my husband, and there was a void in my life. And obviously that void comes, and that was the time I went onto social media, and I realized, that students were connecting, they were chatting, they wanted to know, and I started putting some of my thoughts, my inner thoughts on the social media, and that just opened up a world, to me completely. So last 6 years, if you say from 2015 to today, the social media, I am connected to thousands of my students. I mean, the alumnus, and today, the present students, everybody, whenever they have a problem. I mean, if you hear the kinds of things that they ask me, you would even laugh, you will even cry. Like the other day, somebody just asked me, like, she's recently married, and she said that, should I be checking my husband's phone or no? He never touches my phone, but I sometimes doubt my husband. Should I touch his phone or no? I mean, these are the questions that they'll ask, and they're your students. Okay,
So you
so this
become the
is the
master counselor.
absolutely, and without any counseling degree. And they just believe and they talk, and like, it's like, you don't, I feel, that you just need to be connected, and लोगों के मन में और दिल में अगर झांक के देखते हो, तो आपको समझ जाता है ना कि उनको क्या चाहिए, वो क्या चाहते हैं आपसे. They just want to connect, they just want to open up. So social media played, Pramod, a very big role in reaching out to my students. And even during this complete lockdown, because my care club normally was a one-to-one, it
So,
was
so, so,
offline.
so, no, no, so talk about the Care Club, because that is that your initiative, and what is it? It's right in the back, in the background. But what does it mean, Care Club? क्या करती हैं आप
Care
उसमें?
club, the full form for care club is counsel, advise, rise, and evolve. So that is care, which stands for. And this exactly, so 2015, when that void came in my life, and I started connecting with my students, and I said I must do this in a more organized and structured way, instead of like something. So on one of our foundation days, I remember, on 5th of September, we just launched the care club, and that became such a hit, that students from all over the world, my alumnus, they keep connecting. And it's done, sometimes it's done on the spot, it's done just across, like, okay, they need some advice urgently. Sometimes, most of the times, it's done in a very organized manner. There are students from different colleges, their names are given, and I give them each 15 to 20 minutes, sometimes half an hour. Sometimes they come twice in, and they ask, their problems, they open up their hearts to me. And this has been happening for last 6 years. And that's why the care club, it's a registered platform now. And wherever I go, I am connected to my students. Whatever I am doing, I'm connected to them. And it's just not anymore my students now. Knowing them, their friends, their families. I have even families coming and chatting with me and having their problems, and nothing to do with career. Sometimes they're career oriented, but most
How
of the
much
time,
time? How much time are you able to make for these conversations? Because it sounds like you're doing a lot of this, and most people are just overwhelmed with their daily work, much less make time for
I
students
don't,
who will become friends.
yeah, because I'm not much of a social person. I never became a part of any social organizations or something outside, where today's entrepreneurs, or the business world, they have so many platforms, where they are there. I think I have not become a member of any of these platforms or anything, where I need to go and give some talks or something like that. These are the only things that I do, where I can be more connected and they're more related to education or students. So my care club is like 24 by 7 from it. It's like as soon as middle of the night that they have. Sometimes, you have stopped suicides in the night, and you've helped somebody who's just jumped from a building, and you've just seen it, and you've taken them to the hospital. And even during the pandemic just now, especially when the second wave came just now, it was so sudden and it came into Maharashtra first, if you know. Pune
Yes.
was very badly hit. So we had a lot of our students whose families and all were badly hit by that, And I remember one month I was like 24 by 7. We formed a COVID care club, and I have a site also by the name of COVID care club. And 24 by 7, we were just working with my students, for getting beds and getting medicines and providing food. We were doing food on a daily basis. So, students connected. And
So, Rita,
for me,
can I ask you a question that may be on some people's minds who are listening to you, who are senior administrators, and they might love to do something like this, but they might think like, "Wow, I've never done this. I'm not this kind of person. Uh, how I've never been on social media now. I, I I'd love to connect to students also. What advice would you give them?" And some people might be saying, "Hey, this is not really a vice chancellor's job, right? So does it have to be a special kind of person to do this? Or do you think everybody should, in today's day and age, be using this to impart their own personal values to students? I mean, that's also a very powerful idea. So what reaction would you give to those people who are thinking this, should I not?
see, I think, it's should I not is one thing, but you have to have that, approach, that feeling from inside, you see, because I had a very disturbed or a very, uneven youth. I always felt, that the youngsters do need people, around them with whom they can open up, they can chat, they can talk. I was lucky. I had parents who were very supportive, but all kids are not like that. All children are not like that. They really need someone to guide them, handhold them, help them in the bad and the rough times. And the youth do have a lot of rough times. I mean, we don't know it, but they do have it. So I would certainly feel, in fact, that everybody out there, who are somehow or the other, connected to the youth. I mean, I wouldn't just say students, but to the youth. Please get on to this. Be there available, for the youth whenever you can. Put your, like, I mean, either spread your values or just hear them and help them build their values. Help them build, find themselves, help them find their own paths in life. Sometimes they are so lost. But also one thing, Pramod, that you have to have that thing inside you. I mean, everybody doesn't have that patience. Even my own team, they all tried this care club thing, and we thought, we'll spread it out because I used to get so much of load on me. But everybody did it once or twice, and then they said, no, this is not our cup of tea. Like, it's not, because you have to be eager to, help the child out, to be there with the child, or anybody rather. I mean, tomorrow, even parents have come to me, with some of their problems or something. You should have a helping nature inside you. You should have that thing, that yes, you can guide them, you can talk to them, you can be them. And somehow that became my calling, So of course I feel everybody should. And it should not be like counseling, I mean, it should not be like a counseling thing. It should be like friendly, it should be friendly. The child, the youngster, has to trust in you, and the person will only trust in you if every time you reprimand or something, like, like, tell them this is wrong, you should not, that's not going to work. If you're going to tell them something which is wrong, you have to always have an answer or the backup ready with them, that this is going to be right. And if you don't do this, this is what it is, so
Right.
it's like being friendly with them, so that
Very
age
powerful.
gap just melts away.
Yeah. No, very powerful and very inspirational, and tough to do though. You make it sound easy, but it's not easy, and not for everyone, like you said. But let me move on from this. On the issue of values in education, looks like one of the approaches you have taken is to say, listen, I'm going to live my values very, let's say, I'll wear it on my sleeve. I'll share it with the world. I'll share it with the students. I want them to experience it, and that's how I'll impart it. Now, that's one way to do this. But if you had to do it across the institution, how do you build those values into your faculty and to the culture of the place? Can you talk a little bit about that? Do you
Yeah.
make any extra effort to impart some of this to your faculty, who then passes it on to the students? You talked about this notion of fearlessness in your students, right? Don't be afraid, open yourself up. How do you instill that? Especially because, one of the questions that has already come from Monica Verma, who's at Marwadi University, is that, how do you teach values in the current era where, society lacks values, or at least we assume that the children don't have those values, or the society is not supporting those values, and you are now trying to change the values for your students. So some thoughts on how do you do it in an educational environment and do it at scale and across the university and across your institutions?
See, values were always there, Prabhat. I mean, values, whatever values we talk about, I mean, each one has different values, and values are basically to build a society. The other, values, which good values we talk about, they're the ones for building a good society. So they were always there. It's not that they are not there. And especially the onus upon educationists, lies to build these values. That is why parents want to send, what they cannot do at home, what they are not able to do. They want to send the children to good institutions, where good values are taught. So obviously the onus lies upon us, and if you yourself are a person who believes in values, and also let me be very honest over here that when you talk about values, values also change with the times. You see, I cannot have a value which I had 27 years. Some of my values could be outdated 30 years back, 40 years back. They're outdated today. So my values have also, like they have also modified or they've changed with times. But basically, what are values? That is important. Values for me is, like, okay, it's being kind to people at all times, Now I'm one thing, if I have to be very kind to people at all times and all the time, then I cannot be running an organization judiciously,
Hmm.
because both those things, kindness 24 by 7 doesn't go, if you're kind 24 by 7, then you're not running your organization, I mean, everybody is going to trample upon you. So striking the balances between all those values of running an organization. I'm also a very disciplined person. So if somebody calls me the Iron Woman, obviously I've done something like that. That's the reason they call. But that iron side of me and the kind side of me, are both they're the two sides of one coin, and they're both open to people to see. So once people realize what the values that you bring, your organization also, from day one, and luckily, I mean, when an organization is run, by very few people, like it's me and my brother, for 27 years, like, and my brother's always been, like with me. He believed in the same values, and wherever he didn't believe or something like that, we always had discussions, and they were nothing to do with the core values. The core values for Indira were always the same. We wanted to be an organization, where kids would come and they would feel, that yes, they can come with whatever they have in their mind, and once they go from here, they're going to go full of confidence. So whatever needs to be done for that, to build their confidence, to be, confident citizens in the world, it's not you can become a confident person only with money, or the thought that you have to make money. So you have to instill in them those, that, well, be ready to adapt with the times, adapting with the times that come your way, that is how you become a confident person, not just by earning a, whole lot of money or something. That's not where the confidence comes from. And that's something which I have learned in my own life, so if, because I'm fearless, and because I believe in doing things the way I want to do, but I also always tell, and that's the team which is built. Like, I have a team now, which is like, people are there for 25 years with me. They are there. Like, we celebrated our 25 years, 2 years back. So you have to find, how you retain your team. So the more you retain your team, the more your values, are rubbed upon them, and they all grow in the same. It's like the whole khichdi becomes together. वो इतनी अच्छी तरह से पक जाती है कि दाल और चावल सेपरेट दिखाई नहीं देते, सब एक जैसे दिखते हैं. And Indira, we've had that. We have a very big. It's like a family atmosphere. You'll not believe, Pramat, in the last 25 years, whichever my office has been, my office door has never been shut. Never.
Hmm.
I always know who's coming, who's going. It's an open door policy. They can come, they can just barge into my office if there's something so bad happened that they cannot wait. And that's the kind of thing I have kept. So it's an open door. People have these antechambers and all. I have an antechamber only when my kids were born, and I literally used to take my little babies to college, my office, and the door used to be shut. Antechamber only, baby. I was breastfeeding my kids. I was lying down. That's it. Otherwise, I don't ever remember lying down. In that little settee in my antechamber. I don't even remember sitting on it also. Or maybe yes, when you come from somewhere and you're changing or something, and that's the only time. Otherwise, the antechamber has never been used for meetings or anything. We have a very, very open door policy. And so, all our values are, related or revolve, around being open, being kind, being available for people, being there always for everybody, for each other. That is how, and so automatically, I think uh, these are the values that are very, very important. Of course, education teaches them to be competitive. They have to get the best jobs, and you got a job 5 lakhs, and you got a job 6 lakhs. That's all part of it. Well, we all need money, and but what's the bottom line? I mean, the bottom line has to be something else. The bottom line has to be that you're creating a homogeneous society, of good, because at the end of it, it's people, and how your relations with people are. That's what's going to matter, even in your organization, how much ever money you earn. But if you have a good relationship with all people around you, that is something जो आपने कमाया है. ऐसे तो सभी कमा लेते हैं. बहुत मुश्किल नहीं है इस दुनिया में पैसे कमाना. Everybody is earning money, but earning a goodwill, a good name, you can earn it with so many different ways. And that's what at Indira we've been teaching. And every day I have at least a few messages from my students. I have it, some of my other teachers, faculties, my brother, everybody gets these messages, that the values that we inculcated in them is what is giving them a happy life. None of our students, I mean, for me, I have very few of them who will tell me that, ma'am, Arch, like I have got a promotion and I've earned this much of money. Hardly anybody. They will all talk about how happy they are in life. So the happiness quotient is something, it matters. And I cannot exactly pinpoint the values, but this is how it is, like, I mean, being available to everybody, being open, being there, listening to people, not just fact, these values are very important today. That the pandemic also taught us from it, that how much
Sure.
mankind needs mankind. It was not education, it was not money. People were sitting with bags of money with 10 ministers' influences, but they were not getting the beds in the hospital,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah,
So this
it was
taught
a
us,
big
that,
equalizer.
yeah.
Yeah. But just to spend one more minute on this topic, and I think we've done justice to this whole issue of values and how do you bring it into education. Rakesh Samani has a question where he says, do you believe in imparting specific values education program to students? So, a lot of institutions and schools, colleges create a program. There's a class on values. So there's a course on values. There's teachers who do values education. Uh, where are you on that? And is that something you also do or believe in?
Yeah, we do that, of course, certainly, because now you have thousands of students. Like Indira has got 15,000 students. So it's practically impossible for me or, one teacher or someone, to reach out to everyone and teach them values. So there are two ways of taking this up. One is, of course, today value education is also there in the curriculums everywhere. So there are different types. In the schools, they have value classes, then they have the assemblies, where they are talking, about children are made to tell their experiences or the good things, the kind acts, and what is happening. So values are very important, how to respect your simple things, how to respect your parents, how you're supposed to do that for your grandparents, how you can be there for them. These simple, simple things need to be taught, because there are children who do not respect their grandparents, they do not respect their parents. I have seen it with my own eyes, the kind of relationships and the way they talk to their elders, I mean, and that is the thing. And secondly, the entire faculties or the teachers or the the staff at Indira, let's say the teaching and the non-teaching,
Mhm.
how we behave with each other, how we behave with the families. I have two sons, and how I behave with my sons and how my sons behave with me is another example that everybody is looking at completely. Like my sons, they go to the same school like one of our schools, but I don't think ever, ever that they've got, any, special kind of, what do you say, treatment or ever at all, nothing. I really, in fact, sometimes I say, I have to tell my son, they say, no, no, mama, I can't do this. I said, please, once let me see, that I'm the chairperson and I need to take you with me somewhere. And So that's how I've inculcated in my kids. So other kids also see it, other parents also see it, other teachers also see it, the staff also sees it. So you have to have value classes. Yes, very much. They are much required. In the older classes, like you can see in colleges and all, today we have the CSR, we have this corporate social responsibility classes, and it's a subject. In fact, in Pune University and in Pune, in all the colleges in Maharashtra rather, I think all over India it must be. We have this subject, where you have to go and do,
Yeah.
your social responsibility and your social work and everything. So those are, in somewhere value inculcating classes or value inculcating moments. So you have to do that. And similarly, if your teachers, your faculties, your entire staff is, of a certain type, they all exude, those values. So you don't have to specially teach them, but values should be seen in your behavior. I think that is so much more important, and that takes time to build. But once the top management is into it, I think others just follow. Those who don't fit, and I've always taken that stand. Those who, are meant to be with us, like us, they will always stay with us. And nobody is indispensable. Even I'm not indispensable. So if I find some of the teachers, using wrong methods with the students or something, I'm completely against it. I won't allow that. I mean, they have to have certain base values and they have to go with that. So whoever, I think Mrs. Somani asked that question. So I think Mrs. Somani, yes, it's important to have both classes also to teach, it's necessary. And it should all come out in your own behavior if you're associated with any education institution, your
No,
students are
that's
there.
very powerful. That I think you do need to do both.
Yeah,
And
both,
if you
both.
don't, if you just teach and you don't
Practice.
behave or
Yeah,
demonstrate or practice, if you don't walk the talk,
absolutely.
then it in fact undermines the preachiness and it becomes preachy rather than something that
Yeah.
is real. So very, very, very well put. Uh, Moving on, a very different interpretation of value from your brother. He's given us a quiz question for you.
Oh my God.
So his question, I guess Chetan Wakalkar
Chetan, yeah, Chetan,
is your brother, and you
my
mentioned
brother,
Chetan,
yes.
so I picked that.
Yeah.
So what makes up value in education today? He's asking a different question, I think. So what is value?
Ah, that's what I said, in today's world, value in education, if Chetan is specifically asking for value in education, I don't think, values can be segregated, from, personal life to professional life to educational life. I think values cut across. Values cut across all the sectors, I mean, if you have to be a kind person, you've got to be a kind person everywhere. Whether you are in education, whether you are in a profession, wherever. But the major values, for education today, like I said, is important. I mean, uh, for me to teach the children, that uh, not to be competitive. Everybody wants them to be competitive, but I don't want it to be competitive, because the minute you go towards competition and the minute you start thinking only about competition and being competitive, you forget to live your life. You're only being competitive. You're trying to beat somebody or the other. You're trying to achieve something, which we all have to do. But like they say, that when you're on a journey, we're all on a journey, whether it is a journey, from your childhood to your education now, this different I mean, like you start from class 1 and then you come to class 10, your values are different then once you become a teenager and your youth, your values are different then. But there is certain values, that stay forever. Like I said, values modify, values change, but there are certain values that stay forever. And I think one of the most important values, even for education, and at Indira also, Chetan himself would understand that what we have inculcated is to enjoy the journey. So even if you are doing something, you're doing a competitive MBA program, and everybody is at Indira MBA program because they know at the end of the program they're going to get a great placement, because Indira is very well known for its placements. We have great 100% placements every year. But that doesn't mean that, we want to teach our children to be, competitive and be, like pulling each other for the jobs. No. In fact, at Indira, we have a placement cell, which is run by students, which is, of course, run by all the students. And those students are taught to work for other students. So
Hmm.
it's not that they every time they are going to take the best jobs. They will take a job. They are taught that everybody takes a job which they are suited for and which is suitable for them and which is, meant for them. Not because he's got the CEO's job, so I can also get a CEO's job. No. So the value in education today is to teach, there are two, three things very important. One is enjoy the journey. even your 2 years of MBA, just enjoy it. You have, competitiveness is not to be anywhere. I mean, I don't personally believe in that. Many people may agree, may not agree with me, but it's worked with me. Without being competitive, I've still achieved so much in my life. There is no need to be competitive. Be focused on yourself, so teaching the children today to focus on themselves. If you focus on themselves, on what they are and what they need and what they want, every time, what you want is not what you need. You get what you need, you see. So
Hmm.
if you teach them to focus on their inner self and to know themselves, I think that is one of the biggest and best values that you can give to your children today in your schools. I think Chetan will surely agree with me, because that's what he and me are practicing today on the campus. I hope, Chetan, you're satisfied with my answer.
He had actually sent it on the in the based on the
Question just
announcement on
before.
social media. So I don't know if he's listening, but he can
Yeah, he
always.
must be listening. Yeah.
Yes, and so since you mentioned placement, Chaudhary Prasad just asked the question. So is placement a must-end product in management education? Is it a must-have?
He's asked an excellent question. And, there were times, Chaudhary Prasad, right? You said, yeah. So, Mr. Prasad, this question is so good, and it touches, a nerve inside me. Many years back when we started, Indira, and it used to be, as a punchline, that this is not a placement training institute. This is an educational value imparting institute. So please, don't come to us if you want just a placement. But of course, like I said again, that with the times, our values, our thoughts, what we need, they change. And if you are into a profession, you have to blend your values and the need of the time. So the need of the time was that if I have to keep my institute afloat and a good institute, I had to see that the best placements are happening at my institute as a management institute. I'm talking about my management institutes. But at the same time, I'm not that's exactly coming back to the point. I'm not going to let my students go out and they have to earn a name outside today, saying that they are wonderful human beings. At the first thing, the base, that we good human beings. If they're good human beings, they can be great managers. So that is something that we said, that yes, we have to do placements, because I have to be in the profession, I have to make money, I have to run, I have to pay salaries to people, and there are so many people dependent on me. So I have to see that I make money. Management institutes, yes, if you want a good full management institute, Mr. Prasad, you have to have placements. But how and what you mean by placements is something very important. And that is what, like giving the children the values that, yes, this is not a competition. What you are good at, you please take that and make the best out of it. So these are the values you give them. You give them a placement, but you also make them good human beings. Now, let it not be known that you go to Indira, so you just get a good placement and you go there. No. Well, guys, you got to, put in a lot of effort to get that good placement, and in a good way. You have to be a good human being first, and then you get a good placement. Because after 10 years also, I want industries, we have coming to us for 10 years, 12 years. And
Hmm.
they say, wow, the students that you've given us, they're doing so well. They're wonderful people, they're like people's people out there, and they are like taking care of so many people around them, and they keep people bound to them, and they do so many things which are not required of them, yet they do it. Now, this is what I want to hear. So placements, yes, a must, because we are in the business today. Let's not, forget that. And that is the topic, is also the business of values or something like that, right, Pramad?
Yes,
So
yes, it
the
is.
word
It is.
business is there.
Yeah. No, this is. I love your very frank and candid responses, because it's easy for somebody to say either one way or the other, that oh, it's only about placement, or that it's only oh, no, it's not about placement, it is about education, because that sounds more noble. But you are very practical about this. Listen, of course it's about the outcome, but how you get to that outcome is important. That's where
Very.
you're bringing in the values. And also it's not just the outcome, it's also about the behavior, the mindset, the values, what kind of human being you said
Yeah.
am I
Yeah.
creating. Of course they'll get a job, and of course you need to get them a job. You
Yeah.
don't want them to
They
not.
have to, no? I mean, we all have to. That's the thing, because we also want to see that people sustain in their lives, people survive in their lives. And fortunately and unfortunately, the barter system is over thousands of years back. It's only money
Yeah,
that, works.
yeah.
So money is only, barter is only through money. So you have to teach them how to make money, but how, that is very important.
So Argha Chakravarti is asking a question which we could be discussing for the rest of our life.
Okay.
So her question is that while of course values in education is important and is paramount, but is it that values inculcated during one's childhood or through one's upbringing can be re-engineered during adulthood by any institution? So she's basically saying, can you change people's values? Can you improve people's
Uh,
values? Can you
yeah.
add to?
Hi, Agar, and it's a great question, and I totally believe in this. Child values that are inculcated in your childhood can be re-engineered. They cannot be changed. You can re-engineer them. You can give them different, but the base always remains. But a value that has been inculcated in your childhood, how you modify it to suit your life, is something very important. And that is why telling the child, in the young age, to focus upon themselves, that yes, you have been given a value, but does that value suit you? I mean, is it good enough for you? And if it is it suitable in today's world? Yes. If it is not, how are you going to change yourself? How are you going to adapt yourself? How are you going to adapt that value to make your life more valuable? So of course values can be re-engineered, and that I don't think they can be, but they should be re-engineered, because sometimes the values that are given to us by our parents and by our, our in our childhood, necessarily do not work for all of us into our life. And let's understand that we always say, in our, in our country, in our nation, it's taught that, parents, I mean, they're the ultimate. Whatever they teach you, everything, it's the right thing. I'm not, I don't believe in that. And I tell all my children, and I'm open. Parents teach you values, which they know, which are based on their life, what they've learned from their lives. That's how. But you have your entire life in front of you, the child. So the child has to re-engineer those values, has to adapt to those values. And they may change with the changing times. Our parents didn't know what was a cell phone. They didn't know all these things, everything. So today, I mean, my mother can tell me, that, oh, you can't be sitting with a phone all the time in your hand. Your phone is like your life or something like that. But I know that today how important my phone or my laptop or my MacBook or whatever it is to me, my iPad. Now, my son, who's a 16, 17-year-old and a 20-year-old, for them, again, their entire life, their music, their everything today is on their phone, on their laptops. I'll not be telling them, what are you doing with them all your life, or so, all the time you're with it. You cannot, because times have changed. Everything has changed. Values can be there as a base, but yes, we have to engineer them. And good institutions will always teach you, to adapt values to make a valuable life for yourself. Not stick to values, even if you are sad, and even if those values are going to bring you down, or they're going to make your life miserable. There is no point in sticking to those values. I don't believe in that at all. Then whether they are taught by your parents, they're taught by our teachers, they're taught by anybody, it's your life. And the ultimate goal of your life is to see that you are happy, because if you are a happy soul, you can make so many around you happy. And for that, you have to adapt and change yourself, to make yourself into a better person. So always, that's why, look within you, focus inside you. What are your values? How you can change them? How you can re-engineer them? And how you can become a better person? You know.
Thank you again. A very candid and a very personal response. I think I enjoyed all your responses. And in the 5 minutes we have, any important trends that you see in higher education from your perspective? Everybody's talking about the same stuff, the blended learning online. Then, but if you had to step back and say, what are the one you've been at it now from scratch for 27, 28 years. So is there a one big thing you see happening going forward?
Uh, I think, we are, there's always things happening. I cannot say, honestly, one thing that is
Okay.
going to happen or change over the next few years or something, because we've seen changes all across. If you see the last 15 months, we saw such a big change. None of us ever thought, about online learning in such a big way. Everybody was talking about blended. We had distance education, we had online learning, but it was like it was a side story. It was like वो जो scooter होती है उसका जो side वाला होता है, car. It was like a sidecar. Main तो वही था,
Uh,
जो सामने. But in 15 months, it all changed. You see, I mean, everything changed, and we completely came, onto online, an online mode of learning and teaching. And today, again, if you see the last 6 months, everybody, Pramath, is talking about, the blended learning. It's going to be offline and it's going to be online. And when everybody was made to sit at home last year, people were very happy. Big companies and all changed their policies and they say, well, people are going to work from home. Now it's going to be like that. Work from home is going to be the culture. Where is it all gone now? People are, the big companies are criving today. They all want to come back to work. They all want to forget about that online. They're all waiting to come in person and work because humans are made, we are always made, not to, sit in one place. Human being is made is a person or is a animal, जो जिसको हरदम movement चाहिए. You have to keep moving. So you have to keep moving from one thing to another. Now, how you move, that is very different. Today you move from offline to online, online to offline, maybe something else, But I largely, personally, what I feel is that, I mean, depending on how the things go, I don't know what is going to be the third wave or what is going to be the new mutations of the virus or anything. But given everything going smoothly after this, I don't see a large impact, on teaching in a blended or something manner, I feel, that it is, I mean, campuses are going to be very important places. They're going to be the buzz of life and activity, and they're going to be the centers, where lives are made, where people are going to be, making their lives and careers and everything. So I personally feel that not too much of a change on campuses, but again, it all depends on what kind of the pandemic we are going to face, something that is thrown in our face, to us, what we don't know about, But I don't see a large change moving from, offline to online completely or to so much of blended or something. No. I mean, campuses are going to be what they are. In fact, everybody's just waiting. You and me too are waiting to go back to our campuses and freely and openly move about with our students, I mean, I would surely be so much more happy if Pramod would be in front of me today instead of, doing this online thing. I would like to see the faces of everybody who's sitting, 123 people. I would love to, lock my eyes into their eyes and talk to them. I mean, that's what humans are made for. We are not made for this. So, for as far as change is concerned, we've seen it. We can only go further and say, oh, we've seen it, we've been there, we've done that, everything. But we are happy with where we used to be, and we would love to be there. Of course, we would love to take lessons from this, from this online and everything, and we would love to inculcate them, and I mean, there's a new avenue open, like today we can have a lot of people connect to you, where you wouldn't have connected before from the world for education. So it was always there before, but with the Zoom and all this coming in, it's become so easy now, very easy. So that will also be as a part of our future as we go ahead with education. But I think coming back on the campus is going to be with a bang, in the next whenever we come back, And I would love to see that, happening with a bang, and how, of course, we can inculcate and all that. And that's, I mean, time will tell, I feel that as the times come, we can all keep changing.
Well, on that positive note and on that happy note, because I'm already feeling happy with the idea of going back to campus. Thank you for an amazing conversation, Tarita. And, you have a great gift, which is of being so open and so candid and so authentic, because it's also very clear from when you talk and when you share your ideas that these are not contrived thoughts. These are things that you've lived and you believe in, and your passion and your vivacity, which is in your name, really comes through. So I'm so glad that you were able to make time for us and our listeners. And I hope that we can bring you back and continue this conversation, because there's so much to ask you and discuss you that an hour will not cover. But I do want to usually start and end these on time because it's in the middle of the day. But thank you so much. And I really, really appreciate your making the time. And I've really thoroughly enjoyed listening to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pramath, and thank you, everybody. It was really my pleasure. Thank you so much for patiently listening to me. Thanks, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much.
And thank you everyone who joined us on Campus Charcha. We'll be back in 2 weeks, like we do every Thursday, every 2 weeks. So thank you so much for joining, and please stay with us on social media for the next Campus Charcha announcement. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.